Beyond the Void, a Waska combo of Syrian Rue and DMT by Pew's Fidelity on Earwood. Blast off. Nothing could have ever prepared me for what was about to happen. So, Momo lit the bowl for me. I saw the crystals beneath the screen melt. Tasted the vapor trail down my throat. One pretty large toke. Halfway through the second toke, I began to feel the DMT onset. The vibration, humming, oscillating visuals. Then I went in for a third toke. Already feeling this reality tearing away. I closed my eyes, saw striped women revealing a gate, but it was pulsing. The gate was opening and closing over and over again. Up to here, it was very familiar. All the feelings and sounds were familiar, except things were significantly more intense, and I felt a commotion. I believe in layers. There's the physical material layer, which we see on a day-to-day. Then there's the energy realm. That's where we see the chakra systems, meridians, and the Alex Gray paintings we love so much. Then I believed there was the DMT layer. The onset was very much like curtains revealing the layers one by one. And when I got to the DMT layer, that very fabric was being ripped apart. And I honestly freaked out. The beautiful palace that is revealed on DMT was being split right down the middle by a piercing white light. I felt the tension of the final layer of reality. I felt it tear right down the middle and went on a downward spiral from there. My very essence, this goes beyond visuals, began to break down, and I watched all that I am poof off into fractals until there was nothing but white. Very quickly, I watched myself be reassimilated, and I opened my eyes and I found the room disintegrating. It was disintegrating into the void. And just as I quickly hold my essence and consciousness, it split up into little fractals until there was nothing but void. Then quickly, everything came back together. This cycle kept repeating over and over and over, being torn apart and then rebuilt again. This went beyond sensations and visuals. My ability to think would break off into a fractal and disappear into the void. The ability to perceive itself would break off into a fractal and then disappear into the void. I kept thinking this was it. I went too far. I've peered too deep. I kept trying to tell myself that things will be okay tomorrow, but the very concept of tomorrow would be ripped away. I thought of my family and that would get ripped away. I started thinking about everything I hold dear, and that would be ripped away from me too. I came to terms with my death, but even that would get ripped away. I felt like I was going to be stuck in this constant rebuilding process forever. Part of the issue was that this was happening so fast, there was no space to get comfortable. anytime I would focus on a visual or an idea, it would just fractal off, and then it would drag me into this empty void with it. I somehow crawled over to Momo. I placed my hand on her lap. Talking was impossible, save a few grunts of desperation. Moving was beyond me. She noticed that things took a bad turn. She put her hands on me and began to repeat, breathe in love, exhale gratitude. Breathe in love, exhale gratitude. It seemed to have some effect on me. Her voice, and being able to kind of see her behind the crazy wall of DMT visuals, felt like the only connection to human life as I knew it. Controlling my breath was difficult and would be calming for a few seconds before reality would disassemble again. After what seemed like an eternity, but turned out to only be a few minutes, she helped me get to the bed in the other room. I don't remember the journey to the bed, except strange, bubbly cones floating in Salvador Dali meets futuristic computer animations world. It kind of reminded me of one of those trippy screensavers from Windows 98. I lay in the bed for a while, unable to move. I was beginning to get used to the disassembly of reality, but it had in no way reduced the intensity. I started gaining awareness of my body for the first time since it began. It felt like surges of electricity were traveling through me. I could feel and see sparks and tingles pulsing through my veins. I was still in a state of fear and panic. Thinking was still near impossible. But here is where the learning began. I want to note that in every other psychedelic experience I've had, no matter how fully the void presented itself, there was always a presence. In this void, there was no presence. There was no mother, father, ancestors' presence. There was literally nothing. I realized that I was worrying about people close to me. I started realizing that I was being disassembled. The last things I was able to hold on to are those things I valued, and then those were taken away from me. I was sure something in my brain short-circuited. The experience started to lessen, but still no assurance of it passing soon. We'd ordered food for pickup before the blast-off, and while they said it'd be ready in 20 minutes, I'm sure by now half an hour had passed. I was able to kind of talk now. I was entering a more familiar place, but still in complete and utter shock. Everything was still being periodically broken apart into nothing, and then back together again. Momo realized I was easing out and asked if I was okay to be left alone so she could go get the food. I agreed and just asked for my phone. She left and I managed to dial my girlfriend because at that moment, all my entire being desired was comfort. I looked down at my phone and my phone was coming apart and coming back together too. Somehow I managed to get in contact with her and I closed my eyes and began to speak. Words have never left my mouth in such fluidity and grace. I quickly told her what I'd taken and a brief explanation of what I was feeling and of my panic. I explained to her that there is no I. All we are is a vantage point of observation. We're not beings shaped by experiences. No, we are the experiences. We are not being conditioned. We are the conditions. Without conditions and beliefs, there is no experience. There is nothing. We set up the conditions through which the universe and existence can express itself through. The people we surround ourselves with give us the illusion that there is an individual, but really, all we are is the experiences and bonds we share with those people. I realized that everything that I thought was being disintegrated into nothingness, and at the end, all that was left was a point of reference for the universe to experience through. But without conditions, there was nothing to experience. Talking was so alleviating. I would close my eyes and become the words which took away from the experience of disassembly. Even though my words and train of thought would spiral off into a fractal, I would have to pause to regain the ability to start forming words again. So many emotions came through, some tears, laughing, much talk about my relationship with my family. We spoke of the Sanskrit word sat. Now, the Sanskrit word sat means truth. That was resonating with me. So much so as she would recite the mantra Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss. When truth and consciousness are combined, bliss is experienced. Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam. I kept repeating for a while. The embodiment of truth. After some time of talking, the cycling stopped. I felt much more present, much more intact. I opened my eyes, and things were much more familiar. A nice blend of the Syrian Rue from where it was before the DMT with a very profound ayahuasca touch. Momo got back with the food. I handed her the phone, and she spoke to my girlfriend for a bit when I recollected myself. I got up, stretched around. Trails lingering, but I was just so happy to be back on ground zero. Never felt so happy to not be tripping. I checked out the clock towards the end of the conversation on the phone, and it was 7:45 p.m. I checked the phone later, and my call went out at 7 p.m., which means the intense peak reached a plateau for about 30 minutes before I was able to verbalize to Momo that I was okay and was able to utilize the phone. The fractalization of reality lasted most of the conversation, so I would say the come down was about 30 minutes and lingered for another 30 minutes. Total time for the DMT portion, 1.5 hours. By 8 p.m., I felt pretty normal. Feel good similar to a low dose of mushrooms. Mind completely blown by the experience. Heart overwhelmed by gratitude for all those around me and every being that was crossed my path and allowed me to experience this life. I realized so much about myself, about my values, about the fragility of life, about conditions and the truth of this human experience. In hindsight, it was the most enlightening and cleansing experience I've ever lived. I would definitely try it again, but with more mental preparation. Knowing what I know now, I believe the experience would have been more enjoyable and easier to digest. I do acknowledge that fear got a hold of me. I lost my footing, and the panic affected my ability to observe and take in the experience. But that's what I needed. Sometimes we do need to feel fear to be reminded of the genuine and simple appreciation of this life. I thank Momo with all my heart for the comfort and compassion she provided during the experience. 2 days have passed since the experience, still somewhat in shock. Occasional but slight flashbacks of the void and all the layers in between. Intensely patterned clothing has been overstimulating for me and evokes the omnipresent presence of the void. Creator, thank you for this experience. Thank you for taking the time to read through this experience. Safe travels.